Welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I'm Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned entrepreneur and mom of two. As women, we are so much more than just one thing. We're wives, moms, entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and dreamers with goals and ambition. On this podcast, we'll talk about everything from juggling family, work, and fun to making your dreams a reality through simple, effective marketing strategies, all designed specifically for the busy mom who doesn't have a lot of extra time. So whether you're just getting started or already have an established business, there's something here for you. If you're ready to take on the challenge of becoming your own boss and making your dreams a reality, then let's get started because this girl means business. Hey friend, and welcome to episode 210 of the Girl Means Business podcast. Now, when this episode goes live, I'm going to need all your thoughts, prayers, and energy sent my way because I will be at camp with about 100 fifth graders. I am chaperoning my daughter's fifth grade camp trip, which they do every year at their school for kind of the graduating fifth graders going on to middle school next year. And it's 4 days at a YMCA camp. It's going to be really exciting and fun, but also very exhausting. So please send me all the good vibes, all the energy you can, because I'm going to need it. And probably by this time, I am ready to sleep in my own bed and not with like 20 other girls in a cabin. But I will say that being able to spend a week doing that with my daughter is exactly why I work so hard behind the scenes to make this business what it is, so that I am able to take a week off and go enjoy those kinds of moments with my kids that I maybe couldn't otherwise if I was working full-time or still teaching full-time. And so not only does this business financially allow me to do that, but because I have built up systems and organization and things in place to allow me to let this business kind of run behind the scenes, even when I'm not working in a day-to-day, it has allowed me to take time off and enjoy being able to go on this trip or going on field trips with my little one, or just being able to have like a mental health day where I don't want to work for a day. And so the key to a lot of that is being able to create systems in your business that allow you to take time away or allow you to work ahead in your business so that you can take a break if you need to, or if things unexpectedly come up. But if you don't have systems in place or you aren't organized in your business and you feel like you're just constantly kind of keeping your head above water, it's hard to be able to really enjoy it. And it's hard to be able to take a break when you need to take a break, because I fully believe we were not designed to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are doing that because we are the business. We are the only ones doing the work. And so having systems in place, having an organizational plan, having things where you are able to batch create content like these podcast episodes, or you're able to work ahead and get things done or automate things, is really, really helpful in making sure that you are able to run the business the way you want to and not feel burned out. So today I have a really great guest on the show, Ashley Freehan. Ashley has been a guest here on the show before, and last year I was part of her Focused Mom Summit, and I'm a part of it again this year, which takes place on April 17th through the 21st. So if you're listening to this live, you can still sign up to join our summit. It is completely free. It's an online event to help you purposefully organize your photography business so that you can find balance, feel productive, and increase profitability without the full-time workload, which is exactly what I was just talking about, of being able to feel like you're being productive in your business without working constantly in your business. And there's some incredible speakers that are going to be speaking on all different kinds of topics when it comes to sales and marketing, the behind the scenes of your business, the organization of your business. And the best part is, of course, it's all free. Now, there is a VIP toolkit that you can purchase if you would like to add on to your free experience. However, if you just want to join the sessions live and and just soak up all the information, you can absolutely do that for free. So again, I will have that link down in the show notes. So make sure you go and get signed up. And just as a little side note, it is the Focused Mom Photographer Summit. However, if you are not a photographer, if you're just a business owner or a mompreneur or a creative business owner, please feel free to go ahead and join, because the content inside of the summit is not limited to just the photography industry. It is good, solid advice for all business owners. And so again, you can grab that link down in the show notes and get signed up for free. All right, guys, I'm excited to bring Ashley in. She is going to be sharing some really great tips today on how to feel more productive in your day-to-day business, because we only have so many hours in a day. We want to make the most of the time that we have. And again, not spend 12 hours a day working in our business. So I am excited for you to listen to our chat. So let's get to it. Here is my conversation with Ashley Freehan. Ashley, welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Me too. Thanks for having me on. I can't wait for this conversation. It's going to be so good.
Yeah. And I think we've been talking about doing this for a while, so I'm glad it's finally happening. And I'm ready to just jump right in. So let's start. For those of you listening who are not familiar with Ashley, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of your story.
Absolutely. So I am the founder over at the Purpose Gathering, which is an online education community and platform. So I started the Purpose Gathering, honestly, out of desperation for community with other moms who understood what it was like to run a business and have a family. And since I started, it actually began as a meetup group in Mesa, Gilbert, Arizona area, and it pivoted online when COVID happened. And so that is was a happy accident. I'm back to also doing in-person meetups, but over the years, I realized that as a photographer myself, I'm a brand photographer, actually came from the wedding industry for 10 years. I was like, I have so much knowledge, not only to serve the mompreneur, but also the mom photographer. So that's really when I shifted everything and started really focusing on helping mom photographers work less, enjoy motherhood, and just be more profitable and successful in their current photography business. So that's a little bit about me. I do live in Arizona, as I mentioned. I homeschool my two kiddos that are 8 and 11, and my husband and I just celebrated our 15-year wedding anniversary. So that's a bit about us in a nutshell.
That's awesome. You and I have so much in common as far as just our journeys and the pivots it's taken and the photography background and all the things. And so that's why I always like to have this first part where we kind of get to know each other. And not that I didn't know these things about you, but the listener too. And just seeing how similar so many people's stories are. I think it's really important for people to hear, it's not you on an island.
Exactly.
We all have these similar journeys to what everybody else has gone through as well.
Well, one thing too, I didn't even mention that we have in common is we both were educators. I personally never taught in the classroom, but I have my degree in elementary ed. And so, we both came from that education space too. So that's fun.
I think there's a link somewhere. I don't know. I'm not the one to do this, but someone should do a study on educators becoming entrepreneurs, because I feel like that there are a lot. I was just on a panel earlier this morning and I made a comment about something about my teaching background. And I had all these other people on the panel were like, I was a teacher too. And I used to be a teacher. So there's definitely some correlation. I'm not sure what it is, but
yeah.
Maybe we're just all eager to get out of the classroom.
Right.
Well, so one of the things that I want to talk about today is just the idea of organization and productivity. This is such a key aspect of business. And I think for a lot of us who, like you and I, or anyone coming from a 9-to-5, more structured career, going into this entrepreneur space, it's hard to adjust to having to set structures and strategies in place that keep you productive and keep you kind of moving forward. And you being a homeschool mom, obviously you have to have that structure, especially for your kids, and to keep them active or doing what they need to be doing in their daily schoolwork. And so that's an area I know a lot of people struggle with. And I'm raising my hand because myself included. I had this idea of what my days would look like whenever I left teaching to work full time. And it was so far from the reality. And as someone who I don't naturally consider myself an organized person or someone who really craves structure, I've had to learn how to become more of that type of person. So I'm excited for you to share some of your tips and strategies with us today. So my first question is, like, do you feel like that this is something that is naturally come to you as far as being organized and creating structures, or is it something you've also had to kind of learn on your own?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do.
Definitely, I've had to learn this. I think a lot of your listeners can relate to this, being creative, right? Entrepreneurs, photographers specifically, right? We got into business because we liked the creative aspect. Not many people, have I heard, got into business, being a photographer because they liked the business side, right?
Yeah.
So they liked the creative side. And that's probably how you're resonating too. You're like, yes, I got into business because I liked the thing that I'm good at, right? Not the business side. Yeah. And so I definitely had to learn how to be more strategic about my time. And I always share this story because I think it resonates with so many, but I actually didn't always homeschool. It was a recent decision. My kids, as I mentioned, are 8 and 11, and we have only been homeschooling for 2 years. So this is our second year. And I always thought when my son went to kindergarten, I was like, I'm going to have all the time in the world. Like, I'm going to be so productive. I'm going to make so much money. It's going to be great. Time is my biggest problem. And then I sent my son off to kindergarten, and I had all the time in the world. And I was like, this is amazing. Everything's going to change. And then literally nothing changed. I just had more time to waste and more time to be doing the busy work side of productivity. I'm using air quotes because I really do believe that there's a difference between being productive and being efficient. And when you're a mom, and especially when you maybe decide to homeschool, if that's, something you're thinking about, and you have less time on your hands, you really learn the difference, right? So just checking boxes is not productive if you're checking the wrong ones. And so that's what I had to really learn was, okay, now my time is so limited, right? I've got to learn, what do I do? How do I get organized? And really, that's really when the journey started. Is the past 2 years have taught me I have to get strategic real fast because I only work 11 to 15 hours a week. That's the only time I have with my childcare. And so I have to be organized. Otherwise, I'll get nothing done. So it definitely has been something I've had to learn.
Yeah. When you only have a limited amount of time, it's so important. And I like what you said about how you just have more time to waste. Because I was the same way. When I left teaching, I had my youngest one still at home with me, and my kids are similar ages. They're about to be 11 and 7. And so when my littlest one, she was 1 when I left to stay home. And so for the next 4 years, she was with me nonstop. And I kept telling myself, it'll get easier when she's in school. It'll get easier. When she's in school but they're both in school, I'll have all this free time. And what I realized was when I was teaching full time, that 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it drug by. But when I'm home 8 to 4 goes by so stinking fast. It's ridiculous. And so, yeah, like I also was like, okay, so it's not necessarily that I need that time. I just need to know what to do in that time to make the most of it. And I think that's where a lot of people, especially moms, get kind of caught up in the, like, what do I do? And I think a big part of that is like, we have this to-do list, this constant running to-do list. And it can feel almost overwhelming too, of like, okay, I don't even know like really where to begin, but I'm jumping ahead of what I'm like, I have all these ideas in my head I want to ask you questions about. I'm like, oh, just stay focused. So kind of going on those lines, you said you had to learn how to be organized. You had to kind of take that initiative and set up these strategies in your life and these structures in your life. So what did that look like for you? And what advice do you have, or what tips do you have for someone who's like, yes, I'm in the same place y'all were. Like, I need structure. I need something because what I'm doing right now is not working. Where do we even begin?
This is such a great question. So I think the first place that you have to start is creating a task list, right? Because I feel like I can't even tell you how many entrepreneurs I talk to, and I ask them like, what is your task management system? And they're like, a piece of paper. And I'm like, okay, girl, like that's going to get you not very far, because how many of you lose that piece of paper and then you have to rewrite it again? And I'm not saying pen to paper is a bad thing, because I personally process that way as well. But I have had to learn that if I want to be more strategic, I have to have that in a digital place as well. And so what I recommend people start with is just brain dumping your to-do list, getting it on a piece of paper, and then putting it into a task management system. I personally am I like to say that I'm like a hybrid planner. I think I've gone mostly digital, but I still process with pen and paper. So I do say that I still do paper and I still do digital, but I've found that if you don't have a place that your master task list lives, you will constantly feel overwhelmed, because your brain is not meant to remember information. Your brain is a processing unit. So your brain processes info, but it's not a storage unit. And so that's why I think so many entrepreneurs get overwhelmed with their task list, is because it's running in their head at all times. So step one is to get it out of your head and get it onto a digital portal somewhere, right? So I use Asana. I used to be really big with Trello, just recently moved to Asana, and it's literally my task list. I still sometimes will keep notes in my phone. So like your notes app is a really great place for a checklist too. So it doesn't have to be, this big fancy thing, but I feel like what I love about Asana is that it's searchable, right? So like if I'm thinking, okay, I wrote this one thing down, this is the keyword, I can go search it and find it really quickly. Whereas like in a note on my phone, I can't do that. So that's step one. And then step two would be really to organize that list, right? So now that you have the list, starting to figure out, I like that Asana allows you to have projects. So I kind of group all of my tasks, with other tasks. So all of my marketing tasks will go into my marketing project. All of my podcast tasks will go into my podcast project. My photography clients will go into a separate project for each client. So I feel like that just helps my brain really organize what tasks I have. And then finally, like on just this idea of task management is really being specific about when you're going to accomplish that task. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that. And so we have this ongoing task list and we sort of look at our week ahead and we're like, okay, well, what are the fires I have to put out this week, right? What are the burning things? And we never feel ahead because we're constantly behind trying to just put out the fires. So, I mean, I can go 100 different directions with this conversation right now, but again, trying to keep it focused onto productivity. It's really deciding like, what's the most important thing? And if it's not something that's important right now, you can also move that to a different section in that project and say like for later, or this is just an idea. Maybe this is a shiny object that I don't really need to focus on now, but I don't want to forget about it. So I'm going to save it and pin it for later, right? So there's ways inside of these project management systems that you can organize those things into priority levels. So like, this is really important. This is kind of important. This is a nice to do, maybe someday kind of task, and look at your I guess, task list in that sense of really getting the priorities straight.
I love the idea of having a shiny things column. So I use Asana as well. I absolutely love Asana. I use it for all the things, like all of my podcast content, just everything. It's amazing. And I too kind of have an ongoing like running idea list. So it's things like, okay, I would like to work on this, or these are goals that I have, but I hadn't thought of doing a shiny things one because I get sucked into this where I'll go on like Facebook and I'll see something pop up in an ad and I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. I'd like to look more into that. Or this is a course I would like to try at some point. Yeah. But I end up forgetting about it. Mm-hmm. And then months go by. And when I finally have time, energy, money, all the things, I'm like, oh, what was that thing? And I don't know how to search for it. I don't know how to find it. And this allows me to like having it in that column would be a really cool way to kind of go, oh yeah, I wanted to come back to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Another question I had when you were talking about, the idea of putting all of these things kind of into these columns and into these projects is when you have you have a lot of things going on. So you've got your podcast, you've got like the summit you're running, you've got your photography clients, you've got marketing, you've got day-to-day things you got to take care of. Do you prioritize within each column, or do you prioritize kind of across the board as to what needs to get done first?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, photographers, are you ready to make 2024 your best year yet? Growing a business is tough. You're following all the successful photographers and experts, soaking up their best advice and downloading all their free guides, trying to replicate their success only to come up lacking, blaming yourself when their methods don't work for you. But the truth is, it isn't you. Free content and one-size-fits-all courses can only get you so far. What you need is personalized help and guidance, but that can get expensive. Well, not anymore. I've created the perfect solution to get you personalized results for less than $2 a day. Introducing the Focus Photographer Lab, a one-of-a-kind coaching membership that gets you one-on-one results for a fraction of the cost of traditional coaching. Inside the lab, you'll find the 3 C's to success: classes, coaching, and community. With classes, you gain access to a treasure trove of pre-recorded trainings and invaluable resources. With coaching, you get monthly live trainings and Q&A sessions, along with my favorite part, the weekly one-on-one office hours, where we get to address your unique questions and challenges. And then there's the community, where you get to connect with an amazing group of talented female photographers who share your passion, supporting each other and inspiring each other to greatness. The best part is it doesn't come with an expensive one-on-one coaching price tag. You get all of that for just $47 a month. You can even try it for free for 14 days to make sure it's a good fit for you. And there is no contract and no obligation. You can cancel at any time. So what are you waiting for? Head down to the show notes and click the link to learn more and get signed up today. And let's make 2024 our best year yet.
That's a great question. So I think when I'm sitting down, what I've come to find is that if I don't put a due date on something, I'll forget it. And in Asana, it's very easy to forget things because if you don't put a due date on it and you look at your tasks for the day, which is how I figure out what I'm supposed to do that day, if you look at your My Tasks list, it won't be listed on there if it doesn't have a due date, or it'll be at the very end of your list. Actually, I don't even think it shows up if it doesn't have a due date on your My Tasks. Yeah. So it's very easy to forget about it. So what I do is if it's something that is a task that needs to get done, it has to have a due date. It doesn't mean that like I'm always going to be like a hard fast, I'm doing it on that due date. Although I try, you know what I mean? About 80% of the time that happens, but at least it's in my tasks list. so that if I don't get to it that due date, I just push the due date out. So I just constantly am pushing the due date out. And then if I'm like, okay, I've pushed this too much, then I just really do a heart check and I'm like, clearly this isn't important. Why is it not important? And I ask myself, like, does this need to be on my to-do list or not? And if it does need to be on my to-do list, then I need to create a block of time to do that specific thing. And it's usually something I don't want to do, like a website update or something kind of stupid and random where I'm like, I don't want to do a website update. But how can I like compile all of that together and maybe just block out 1 hour and say, okay, during my next work block, my first hour is going to be specifically on website updates. That's all, right? And maybe you just have a standing time block once a month where you're like, okay, I'm going to do those website updates that I hate, right? But you kind of have to like get really specific with yourself of like, why am I pushing this task off? And if it's important to me, why am I not doing it? And what can I do to make it more fun? So do I need to like plan a date with my friend and my friend comes over and my friend's sitting there working on something she doesn't want to work on. And then we can both be like, are you doing that thing? Are you working on your website updates? You know, like how can you make it fun where you get the things done that you don't really want to do? But we have to, right? As entrepreneurs, we are wearing so many hats and we have to get creative about getting the boring stuff done.
I love the idea of having like a friend. I've even seen people do it like on Zoom calls where they'll hop on and be like, okay, we're going to work together for an hour on Zoom and we're going to make sure we're each holding each other accountable. I also was thinking when you're saying that, I was like, oh, I could make this into like a coffee date. Like you go meet up at like a little coffee shop for an hour.
For sure.
And you're like, we're going to treat ourselves to like a nice coffee and a little, you know, muffin or something. But we have to work for an hour. No gossiping, no talking, no all that kind of stuff. Actually get this thing done. And then we can like, you know, maybe save the sweet treat for the end when you as a reward. But I really like that because I think that is something as entrepreneurs, we don't have that accountability all the time because it's just us. You know, there's no boss you're answering to. There's nobody that's going like, hey, where's that thing I need from you? Where's those website updates? But if you have a friend that you're like, I need to get this done, hold me accountable, then you have someone you're kind of answering to, and that could be really, really helpful. So I love that idea. I think that's so smart.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier that your average work week was like 11 to 15 hours a week. So what is like, kind of walk us through, like, what does a day look like in your world where you're able to work just a few hours a day and still be really productive?
Yeah, absolutely. So because we homeschool, I had to get really strategic about our ideal week. And I talk about this a lot with my own community and my own students in my group coaching program, that if you don't have sort of a baseline week of what your work blocks and time blocks will look like, then it's really easy for you to just make plans and not work. So I don't know about you guys, but as you mentioned, not having a boss, it's real easy for me to be like, do I want to go get lunch with my friend or do I want to go to work? Yes, please. I'll take the lunch. Like, it's just so easy for us to just not work because technically we don't have to work, right? There's nobody holding us accountable to that. And so I create this ideal week and it's been really hard and it changes often, right? Whenever like a big change happens in our schedule, I have to redo the ideal week. Not completely, but I have to tweak it. Excuse me. And that's what's really beautiful about being an entrepreneur is that we have the flexibility to do this. So what I recommend that your listeners do is look at their week and slot the times that like you've already committed to. So, you know, if you already have dance lessons on Monday nights at 5 p.m., that's going to be slotted in there, and kind of do that for everything that's already predetermined, and then go through and add the other things. Make sure there's margin in there. This is really key because I'm one that tends to like book everything like back to back. And then I wonder why I'm so overwhelmed and, you know, irritable all the time. And I'm like, okay, there's no breathing room. There's no room to just be and relax. So for me, I laid this out where I know exactly what we're doing when, and it's a rhythm. So it's not like, oh, it has to be from 9 to 10 a.m. But I have that time in there as kind of an anchor, as a baseline where I know that, you know, if we don't finish our schoolwork by noon and it's 2:00 right now, like other things are going to, you know, take priority, or I'm going to lose out on work time. So I've really just had to be strategic about like, okay, this is the amount of time that we have to do schoolwork, and I'm going to be okay with whatever we get done in that time. because I do have certain time blocks where, my mom comes over and babysits, or my kids go to an enrichment program for homeschooled kiddos, or, we have a trampoline park membership. And so I take my kids there at least once a week, where I get like a 2-hour work block there. But that work block is loud. I mean, can you imagine being at a trampoline park with other kids that are screaming, and it's interrupted, right? So my kids are like, oh, I need a drink, or, oh, I got hurt, or whatever. So I have to make sure that those tasks that I'm doing at the trampoline park are not podcast interviews with Kendra, right? They're not
that could be really entertaining.
They're not going to be like super deep work tasks, because I don't have the attention span for that, right? It's going to be more like admin work, or more of like busy work, or like, planning and assigning, tasks in Asana. So I just have to also be really particular about what tasks go into which work block. And that really helps impact and improve my productivity too.
So I just had like a little light bulb moment. And not even necessarily a light bulb moment, but just kind of one of those things where I was like, this is why women entrepreneurs, specifically mompreneurs. And I know a lot of people, there's this, whole debate about like, is mompreneur a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's an incredible badge of honor. And what you just described perfectly embodies like why I think moms are so incredible at being business owners, because you were just saying, like, we have a membership to a trampoline park. So I'll take my kids and spend 2 hours working in a trampoline park, getting things done while still taking care of your kids. You're doing these things while your kids are asking for drinks, and, hey, mom, watch me do this. And hey, look what I just did, or
take a
whatever.
video of me.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, hey, I've seen you do that 12 times. Good job.
Right.
And I'm not to say that like dads or men wouldn't do those things. But I think that we are so resourceful as women and as moms that it makes that idea of, you're a mompreneur. You're making all of this happen while still keeping tiny humans alive and engaged and all the things,
And it counts as PE time. So I'm like,
well, there you go.
Over here.
I love it. I wish my kids' PE time was trampoline park, but they probably wish it was too.
Right. It's so fun.
Yeah. No, I think it's so amazing. Like just the things that we are able to do as moms and still accomplish things is really, really amazing. And so, okay, a couple more questions. One, kind of going back to the idea of your kids being homeschooled. So you mentioned like y'all have the enrichment things and you have like your mom will come help, but for anyone listening who has maybe young kids at home, this is, they're in that phase of life where they do have someone kind of always coming in and distracting. Do you have any tips for like how to manage that? Because there are going to be times when you need to have a more focused work time, whether it's doing something like this, a podcast interview, or it's like, I really have to have like an hour to dive into this one project and not be interrupted every 5 minutes with someone asking me for a snack. Do you have any tips or advice on how to add that into like your weekly time?
Yes, absolutely. And I actually have a podcast episode that I'll share with you so you can link it if you want to, all about creative ways to work with kids at home. So I don't have my outline in front of me, otherwise I'd go through that, but there's so many good ideas in there. But a few things that come to mind truly, because I actually have been an entrepreneur since having kids. Like, I don't know what it looks like to run a business without kids. So that's something that I feel like is different about me than so many other people too, is like, I just have always had kids in tow no matter what. So I've gone through all of this as well. So I know how it feels to have toddlers, who are peeing on the floor when you're like, cool, I'm trying to take a call right now. Like what the heck? I thought we got through potty training already. What just happened? But like, I can so resonate with all of this, but I think like one of the biggest things that really helped me was learning how to take care of my kids' basic needs first before I went into a work block. And so what that means is that, and I have some episodes on my podcast too about like what kids need the most. And really they need attention and they need control and they need, a hands-free mama who is there and like present with them. And so I think whenever I get ready to do something that is like, okay, I'm going to really need like my focused attention, but I still have my kids there, I will make sure that I give them a huge dose of positive attention before whatever I do, because that gives kids like this huge hit of like, oh my gosh, I'm important. Like mom is taking the time out of her schedule, her day to spend time with me. I think one-on-one special time is something that is huge. That's been really impactful in our family, giving each of your kids 10 minutes of one-on-one attention. We also do together time, which is like me with both of my kids. We do that. We try to do that at least like 20 minutes a day. So like, let's play a game together, grab, 5 books you want to read and let's sit on the couch and read them together. And then I also do enforce that my kids do sibling time. So they have 30 minutes a day where they have to play together. And like, that's a really great time for sibling bonding. And it's not always perfect. You know what I mean? This is something that you have to work up to. But I think truly, like when we give our kids the attention that they need in a positive way, they're way less likely to reach out and try to get attention in a negative way, which is normally what happens. Like when you're on a phone call or something important is happening, and then they're all of a sudden like, mommy, I need you. And you're like, literally, you were fine until I got on the phone. And that happens all the time. And I think it's just because they want our attention. And when they see that someone else has our attention, they're like, ooh, how do I get it? Yeah. So giving your kids a big hit of attention right before you get on something is really important, I feel like. And then the other thing too is letting your kids in on the journey. So my kids, again, have never known anything different. And so when they were little, I would pull out like the old keyboards and, the mouse, and like they would play Office with me. And I would be like, hey, mommy's working. Here's like some pieces of paper. Like, why don't you draw? Why don't you write an email? Like, you know what I mean? Like I literally like would help them come alongside me on the journey. They would be sitting on my lap while I was editing photos, and I'd be like, ooh, let me teach you how to do a face swap. And like, they were always sitting there with me learning. And another tip that I think I share in the podcast episode too, is to kind of do, where you do like a sprint with your work. So it's like, okay, mommy's going to work for 20 minutes and then I'm going to come play with you for 10, or mommy's going to work for 30 minutes. And then, we'll read that book that you've been really wanting to read. I also had my kids like write me notes. So, or draw pictures or something of like, what do you want to do with mommy when I'm done? I would set a timer so they could visually see like how much time was left. And you have to get so creative because they do need so much of your attention. I share a lot of other tips in there too of like, trading babysitting with a friend, going to places like a trampoline park, or we had this place in our area where you could bring your kids and it was like gated off and they could just play. It's called Uptown Jungle here, but I'm sure that you guys have similar things. They're like little play gyms, and we could sit and like I could work on my laptop and watch them play. And it's like there are so many different places that you could take your kids, and you just have to be creative. My daughter is a homeschool student, obviously, and she goes and she's a mother's helper for another family that has 2-year-old twins. And so you could hire a kiddo who's a homeschooler and have them come over and just play with your kids for 2 hours. Like you just have to, I feel like, get out of that mindset of like, oh, I'm a working mom and my kids are more important. And like, my business is not going to grow because I have little kids. Like we have to get out of that mindset of, I call it the martyr mom of like, poor me, woe is me. Like I have it real hard. Everyone else has support and help and I can't afford this. And like, you just really have to step out of that and say like, what can I do? What are some creative ways that I can get some support, because it is hard, right? Kids do require so much attention. And how can you get a little bit of extra hands, extra eyes on your kiddos while you're doing, some of that more focused work, I think is a huge game changer. And we need to step outside of that and just get creative.
Yeah, that's so good. I love like when my kids were little, those little play areas, we had one nearby and it was like a little town. Like it was like the moms had like, they had little tables and they had coffee and snacks and the kids go behind the little half wall gate thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, they had a whole like town that they could go. There was a post office and a grocery store and a vet clinic. And they loved it. Like that was like the highlight of their week, especially like in the summers when my oldest one was like kindergarten, first grade. She still loved that kind of stuff. So yeah, being creative. And the homeschool thing, I never thought of that. I didn't even know that it was a thing, but like,
yeah,
it's because it's not like hiring a babysitter where you're going to leave them home alone with like a 10 or 11-year-old. They're literally just coming to play with your kids while you're in the other room doing something. I think that's so smart. I really like that idea. I'm going to remember that one. Yeah. And I also think it's really important for kids to have that autonomy and to learn the fact that like, that mom is not always going to be right there every second of the day to fulfill every single need. Now it is based on age, of course, like you're not going to leave like a 1-year-old,
right.
But
have fun, fend for yourself. Yeah.
Do in 2 hours. But I think like with my kids, and now it's more just kind of isolated in the summers when they're home. But we have kind of a similar thing where it's like, okay, in the mornings from like 8 to 10 or 8 to 11, whatever we decide that week, I'm going to be working. Y'all are going to be doing X, Y, or Z. And then like the middle of the day, we'll go do something fun. We'll go have lunch. We'll go to a trampoline park. We'll go play with a friend. We'll go to the library. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have quiet time. And y'all are going to go read the books we got at the library, or you're going to go draw for me or do whatever. And that time I think is so important for them to understand that like they can be creative on their own. They can do things on their own and it's okay. And so I think that's a big part of what being home with your kids. Yeah, you're there and that's the reason why you want to be there, but you also are there to be an example of like, you can do things on your own as well. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. Like we are not to be entertaining our kids at all times. Cause if you are like, that is what, diminishes independence. And I'm really a big proponent on fostering that independence. And that's another thing too, that, you can work your way up even with 2-year-olds, like you can work your way up with having them play by themselves, as you mentioned, age appropriate. So if they're, a toddler, they're going to be close by, but as they get older, they might be, in the room next to you where you can still keep an eye on them. Or, maybe you're sitting at your couch on the laptop and they're playing. So, but yeah, I think you bring up a good point. And in the sense of like, it's really beautiful that we get to be home with our kids, and it's important for us to show them that maybe your spouse works outside of the home, and then you can show them but mommy works at home, right? So I get to actually do both. I get to be a business owner and I get to be home and present with you. But with that being said, I also need time to like focus on what I'm doing. So can you give me just 20 minutes? Here's the timer. I'll be done in 20 minutes, kind of thing. And that I feel like gives your kids so much also like just real life, example of like, we're not always going to be entertaining you. And that's not how real life works anyways. Like you are in charge of your own fun. That's what I tell my kids.
Well, and I use the example of, because my husband works outside the home and he works home sometimes, but for the most part, he goes into an office. And when my kids, like I'll be in my office, which is our office / guest room. And I'll be in here like over the summers in one of my work blocks, and they'll just come barging in, like asking a random question, like, hey, can I have a juice box, whatever. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, would you barge into your dad's office at work to ask for a juice box? Or, hey, let's call him while he's in the middle of that meeting and ask him if you can have a fruit snack and see how he responds.
Yes.
I try to put it into kind of those terms. They understand like, oh, okay, this is kind of the same concept. But so we got a little off topic there, but I think it was really important to kind of, because that's such a thing that when it comes to productivity and making sure you're getting the most out of the time that you have, so many women are kind of torn between like, I need to get things done. I want to get things done in my business because we all do this because we love it. But at the same time, like I'm also doing this so I could spend more time with my kids. How do I kind of balance that so that I'm not doing more of one than the other, or like not feeling like, oh, feel guilty for being in here working when my kids are there, or when you're with your kids, you're like, oh, I should be doing X, Y, or Z, or I forgot to do this. And so I think it's a big part of it. So I have one more question before we kind of wrap up. And this goes along the lines, you kind of talked about the idea of creating your ideal week. And I like that idea. And especially you kind of alluded to the fact that maybe you do it every week so that you kind of look at like, what do I have coming up this week and how do I fill in those spots? Because I know a lot of people are like, create like your time blocks. And I'm a fan of time blocking. I think that's really smart, but I also feel like that it has to be different every week. And as someone so I'm an Enneagram 7, I am someone who like, I don't like to be put into like a confinement type feeling. Like that's one of the reasons why I love working for myself is I can say, okay, I'm going to go to lunch with a friend today, and I can add that into my schedule.
Right.
So for someone who is like, I hate routine, I don't do well with routine, I need flexibility, I need to be able to like up and go at any moment. How do you, or do you have any tips for those types of people who are like, I know I need to be more structured, but I crave freedom and flexibility at the same time?
Yes. Okay. This is such a good question because I do get this question a lot. And I do feel like being more structured and being more organized is definitely a learned skill. And it's definitely something that I feel personally. And I think that I would encourage everyone else to also adopt this mentality that it's essential. It's essential to be organized, especially in a business, because disorganization is not productive at all. And I think that you guys can attest to this. And that's probably why you're listening to this, because you're like, I literally just feel like I'm dropping the ball, right? Like maybe you're missing birthday presents for your kids, which not for your kids, but like they're your kids' friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where it's like, how did I forget there was a birthday party this weekend? It's because I had 18 other things on my mind and that was the lowest priority, right? Or like maybe you are missing your kid's birthday or your spouse's birthday and it's like creeping up on you and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything to think this through yet, right? So it's not just being organized in your business, it's also being organized in your personal life. And I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on this, but I think like I just really want to hit home that if you are not organized in this way, then there is no room for spontaneity. So it really is important that you are looking at your ideal week and you're saying, what things are most important to me, right? If someone looked at my calendar today, what would they say was the most important thing to me? And plan your ideal week according to who you want to be, not who you think you are right now. Because I think that's what's really key is that we cram our weeks so full of everything else that everybody else needs from us. But we are the parent, right? We're the adult. We are the business owner. We're the one that leads the way. And so if we notice that, groceries are not getting picked up, right? Things are falling through the cracks. We're missing appointments or whatever the case may be. We're always feeling behind. There's going to be no time to just be spontaneous because we can't even get the basic needs of our family met. We can't even do the basic things in our business without taking from our family. And so this whole idea of being organized, it really gives you the freedom to be like, hey, do I want to go to lunch with my friend today? Cool. How can I do that? I know I have these tasks, these 5 tasks on my to-do list today. I'm just going to bump them to tomorrow because I left space in my calendar for that exact reason, right? The more organized you are when it comes to task management, the more freedom you have to be flexible. And so I hope that helps. I know it's hard because I personally always was like, I don't want to be told what to do. Like I got into business because I wanted to be flexible, but you have to look at what the trade-off is, right? If you're disorganized all the time, you are not going to be feeling in control. You are going to miss things. You're going to feel overwhelmed and flustered. And so the whole point of having an organized schedule and a managed task list is so you have freedom to be flexible.
Yeah. The visual I kind of got in my head when you were talking was this idea of, and I think we've all felt this way, of like, you're just treading water, trying to keep your head above water. And that's how it feels, I think, for a lot of people who don't have the organization in place to feel like they're accomplishing things in their to-do list, is you're just kind of like, just get me through this day, just get me to the next day. And then when you do go, okay, I'm going to pause and go have lunch with a friend, or I'm going to go to my kids' school and have lunch, or I'm going to go on their field trip. And then you feel like, oh, I just like, I misprioritized, or you're beating yourself up for not getting something done. That's so true. Like you have to build that in the organization helps you feel less guilty when you start to do those things. When you want to go have lunch with a friend, or you want to go spend half a day on your kids' field trip, or you want to go do something for yourself, like that's totally fine. But if you don't have that structure in place, it's going to be harder to do that. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Now I want to talk about the summit you have coming up. And so tell us a little bit about what it is and who it's for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I created this summit last year called the Focused Mom Photographer Summit. And basically, the heart behind the summit is to really help moms find more focus in their photography business and not just feel like they're just bouncing around, they're on the hamster wheel, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, because it is so overwhelming as a business owner. There's so many different paths, right? There's so many different things that you can do. And so I really wanted to structure it in a way that would just be helpful. And so each day of the summit is specific based on a different theme. And so day one is all about owning your role as CEO and really what that looks like. And so there are various speakers. I think there are 5 speakers that day that are going to be sharing different topics in relation to that. And then day 2 is about streamlining your processes, and then, so on and so forth through the different days. So there are 4 days for the summit. I think we have 21 speakers, something like that. And it's totally free to attend, but you have to attend live, or I'm sorry, within that first 24 hours. So the presentations will be live and free for 24 hours. And then there is a toolkit upgrade, as we were talking about earlier, if they want to have like the replays of all of them. And then the speakers are also contributing bonuses into the toolkit as well. So that's a really awesome opportunity for them to get, different like PDFs, courses, membership access, things like that. So that's a really great thing. And basically, I mean, I think I alluded to it in the name, but it's for mom photographers. It's for specifically those moms who just don't have a lot of time and they really want to be able to grow their business, and they need more specific pointed help as to what the best way to do that is. They can come to the summit and get all of that information in one place.
Yeah. So this is my second time I've been a part of this summit. I was a part of it with you last year. Yep. And it was so much fun. You had some incredible speakers and topics, and I think a lot of people got tons and tons of value out of it. And sometimes you just need someone to come along and go, this is the direction, put on your blinders and let's focus on this.
Exactly.
And so having this summit is really going to help people do that. So, and I'm excited to be a part of it again, talking about email marketing, and I've got some fun things I'm adding to the toolkit. So I'll have all that linked down below in the show notes so you can go and get signed up. Like I said, it's for free. And tell us the dates again. It's April
17th through the 21st. So it's 4 days of speakers. And then the last day will be like an implementation day with some different, trainings and workshops and stuff from me. So I'll be there.
And that's really cool too. I think that is something else that is very unique to your summit, is that a lot of times you go to these summits or even to a conference, and it's like fire hose of information coming, and you're kind of, I remember doing this several times. I'd walk away with like a notebook full of information, and then I'd get home and be like, but now what do I do? Like, how do I take that energy and excitement and information and do something with it? So having the implementation piece is so key, because that's where the rubber meets the road and where things actually get done, as opposed to, I'm just going to take this information in. Now let's put it into action. So I think that's really amazing that you offer that. So yeah, if you want to join that, you can find the link down below and get signed up for free, or you can purchase the upgrade toolkit and get access to the recordings and all those fun bonuses. So thank you so much again for joining us. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and what you offer, what you do, or if they just want to connect with you and say hi.
Absolutely. So you can find me over on my website at thepurposegathering.com. And I also have a free Facebook community specifically for mom photographers that helps with productivity and all the stuff that we basically just talked about. And I really love to hang out on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I'm really not on it much anymore. So I really like to hang out in the Facebook group. So you guys can find me over there, and I'll be sure to have that link for you too, Kendra.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. It's been great chatting with you, and we will talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me.